Hello everyone. So this is 3.4 part survey and questionnaires under the part 3 of this video series. So part 3 is assessment tools for measuring affective domain. So this is the subcategory of these survey and questionnaires. In this video, we talking about affective domain survey and affective domain questionnaire both. So let's begin. Yeah, when talking about surveys and questionnaires, a questionnaire is a term that used to describe a set of questions that you are asking an individual. So a survey is different process than it. It is a process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data from many individuals. So it aims to determine insight about a group of people. Always, a survey goes much deeper than a questionnaire and often involves more than one form of data collection. Yeah, first let's talk about survey. When talking about more about surveys, it is a process of using questionnaires and other data collections as I mentioned before. So it finds out more about a specific group of people. Uh, so here are some modes of survey that are commonly used. First one is face-to-face survey. It is very common, and there are telephone surveys, self-administrated paper and pencil surveys, self-administrated computer surveys. It usually conducted through online. So the organized data is then analyzed as a whole. Survey characteristics are that type. So all data analyzed in a collected manner. So interpreting the data collected can lead to great insights from this. So these insights tell us more about how a specific targeted audience may behave and feel. So it's very broader than the questionnaire. Next, let's talk about other type questionnaires. When talking about questionnaires, it is not a survey in itself, but it is a part of survey. Questionnaires are actual set of questions that participants answer. So think of the questionnaire as a physical sheet of questions. A questionnaire on its own unlikely to give you all the answers needed for your research. This is because it only gathers pure data from one individual rather than a group. That's difference on survey and questionnaires. Now let's move to next slide. Yeah, when talking more about questionnaires and surveys, there are two type formats using questions and surveys as naming constructed response format and selected response format. Constructed response format is a straightforward approach asking students about their affect by responding to a simple statement or question as the picture given below. So it is another way to implement the constructed response format is by means of the essay. It is an example. When talking about selected response format, on another hand, there are some ways of implementing the selected response format in assessing effective learning outcomes. So those are readiness scale, semantic scale, differential scale, and checklist. So that's two types of formats using to design questionnaires and surveys. And below pictures are given you a graphical description for what I explained about. Next, it is important to identify how to use questionnaires and surveys for measuring the affective domain. It is the most important thing in this video series, in this video. So first, we have to define objectives when we are going to measure an affective domain, and we have to identify structure and select and develop questions according to measuring affective domain. What are the suitable and what are inappropriate things? We have to decide those. And then we can use Likert scale open-ended questions, as I mentioned, formats we can use for designing these questions. Then we can use a pilot testing before we give in our questionnaire answer. So we have to check from that pilot testing about validity and reliability. It is so important. Uh, that means uh, what we are going to measure, is that measuring from this questionnaire, and is it measuring on all the time. uh, it, it should not be limited to one time. It should be measuring all time uh, as questions when using measuring affective domain. So further, we have to consider about ethical considerations. It's very important. And we have to consider about cultural sensitivity, because we are measuring affective domain. So we should have that ability. If there is no cultural sensitivity or there is any doubt, so there is a problem. So that's why it's important to uh, pay our attention on cultural sensitivity. Then randomization, we can put answers randomly and we can put a scoring system. Then we can analyze our data after giving questions or surveys very easily. Then it's important to give a feedback mechanism. Sometimes researchers may not give enough feedback after a respondent giving answers for questions or survey. It's not a good thing. We have to put a feedback mechanism for an effective survey or questionnaire for measuring affective domain also. So we should have data analysis plan after the post preparation time, and uh, we have to continuous improvement, and also we can administrate the whole process during that time, and finally we can collect and analyze data and interpret results. Uh, so that's how to use questionnaires and survey for measuring the affective domain. And also there is a thing as triangulation. So further, triangulation can use for surveys and questionnaires, that is using other observation methods with the survey and questionnaire or other related methods for analyzing data. So it is also important in advantages matter and also in how to use that service and questionnaires. So when talking about advantages, uh, it is important because we are not going to use solely the surveys and questionnaires in many times. We use observations and other methods for that. So that's why it's important as advantages of using that. Further, efficiency is most important thing. We can use these questionnaires and survey in efficient way to collect in our data for measuring affective domain, and it is standard way, and we can quantifiable data usage using, because there is a method and systems that are used for making surveys and questionnaires, and anonymity. That means we usually not getting information such as name and most personal things. We are only collected uh, that we are going to measure, collected things that we are going to measure, um, especially when measuring affective domain, because we don't want names and ID card number like those things. We want what are the measuring things that we have to include in measuring affective domain. So it's very good characteristics and advantages of survey and questionnaires. So with that, there is confidentiality for respondents. Um, they give data without any hesitation, and we can conduct surveys and questionnaire as physical way and in online way. So it's very cost effective than other methods. Um, when comparison with other methods, those are not easy like that. So it's another advantage, and very easy to administration. We can administrate during the process, and before that we can plan the process. So administration process can done through all the process. So that is another advantages. And large sample size, uh, when we are doing questionnaires and surveys through online, we can reach for respondents very easily, quickly, in one time for many participants. So that is another advantage. And structured format. There is a structured format how we are measuring what are going on things like those, and we using a method. um, Sometimes we use only surveys and questionnaires for gathering qualitative data, such as things that are feelings, attitudes, like those things. But sometimes we are using to gather numerical data. So like these methods we are using in a structured way. We are not putting those things as not we are not putting those things um, without order. So we are putting those things in a structured format. So it is also advantageous. Um, So that are the advantages. Now let's move to find out disadvantages or limitations of service and questionnaires. Yeah, that is limitations of using service and questionnaires. The first one is lack of depth. We are not going depth. Sometimes service and questionnaires may uh, limited to participants' participants' thoughts. Sometimes there can be wrong things in response. So when comparison is observation like those methods, they are going for deeper than using service and questionnaires. So that is the limitation of survey and questionnaire. So as I previously mentioned, that can be response bias. According to the perceptions of participants, the response can vary. And also there is limited context. Um, the measuring area can be limited than using other methods in survey and questionnaire. And also non-response bias is another limitation. And question wording effects. That means sometimes the question wordings can be give a different meaning than we expect. And also cultural bias and inability to probe, limited to self-report, and overemphasis on positivity, and instrument reliability and validity. So these are limitations of using surveys and questionnaires. So that brings me to end of 3.4 video. So this is one of tool for measuring affective domain. You can refer more tools from this part 3 video series. I invite you to go through them and identify what are the similarities and differences, what are the more effective ways and what are ineffective ways. Like those things you can identify by referring our video series. Thank you for your contribution and your time that give to me, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I also invite you to refer more videos in this video series. Thank you so much.